let's throw some cool shit in there and see what happens. I have this spark of something catchy, and then let's see where it takes me.
Do you find any significant changes in the way that you approach starting ideas versus before?
Oh man, yes, definitely. I started out writing bars, right? Like the infinite loop and like the shit you get stuck in. And then now I try to utilize the super loop as like something I look at as like a matrix. Like I can hear all the elements playing at once and know that I'm not going to listen to it in that context. Sometimes the super loop works at like the awesome second drop or whatever, but you know what to do with it at that point. So getting stuck, so that helps. But mostly the technique I use now, and we were talking about this like yesterday, is like mud pies, but also random generation with like intent. And so whether it's like, recording MIDI and, finding like crazy melodies from like arpeggiators and like adding rest to them, or like throwing in different scales or something, that has really helped me get creative whenever I have a lack of ideas versus like, oh, I know what chords I want to do in this progression. Sometimes I like to take that Mr. Bill approach where I want the computer to do something so I can react to it. And that kind of like goes against everything that I'm used to, which is normally, all right, get your kick, get your clap, get your hi-hat. All right, let's make some tech house. But now it's becoming more inspiring and random, where like, for 64 bars, I'll have some sort of atmosphere or textural background, and it will not repeat the same sequence once. And so it just always moves something. And like, as a listener, if you listen to music all the time, you really notice that after a while. It's like, for us producers, we could listen to our song 1,000 times and that's fucking it. Oh, excuse my language, but yeah, that's it.
Oh, you're good.
No need to excuse. I click the explicit button when I upload the podcast every time, man. I ain't gonna censor my damn self, man. No how. Yo, we've got a listener named K-Fish who always has the most prescient questions. Like literally, I have this list over here just in case we had a lull and I needed to ask a question. The top question is, what is your process for starting new tracks? Do you generally have an idea before you get started, or do you just jam until something starts sounding good?
Oh man,
pretty sure.
So K-Fish, are you psychic?
Yes.
That's what's up, man. Mind reader.
We love you, K-Fish. You're the man.
Shout outs.
It's funny though, like it was something that you mentioned is like creating organized chaos and then, getting the results as feedback, and like, the two-way process of experimenting, listening to what it did, and then continuing. It's funny because when you start producing, you have this concept of like, all these ideas in my head are going to be the masterpiece that I create. And then once you get better, you start to realize that actually the real beauty of the process of making electronic music a lot of the time is the, for lack of a better term, two-way communication that you have with the DAW. It seems like it would be a very one-way street, but in reality, most of the interesting things that I come up with are an idea of how to set something up, and then like, I think this might sound cool. What does it sound like? And play it and be like, oh, that kind of sparks this idea for this other thing that I could do. But really, you're like experimenting, getting the feedback, and iterating on that experiment, right? So it really ends up being more of like a two-way communication process than anyone or myself would have ever thought, starting the journey of getting good at production. It's always been kind of one of those cool secret touches about, because it's not like you're just doing this in a vacuum by yourself, creating every single tiny little bit of cool stuff. It's a lot of iteration on experimentation, which is like a really fun process in and of itself. So it just becomes really, really like intrinsically motivating, because that there's always boundless results that you would never have expected at any given point.
Yeah, it's like action and reaction.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Tesko was blowing my mind yesterday with some philosophy concepts, but what you just said, but man, what you just said is like describing a relationship that's like so intrinsic to yourself. Like you're dating yourself in this like intense production marriage, but like, and learning what works and what are the beauties of that, like, duration. That's crazy, man.
Yeah. So like, you know, speaking of that, I mean, obviously there's a lot of ways to start to touch directly on Kate Fish's question. There's a lot of right answers for how to start a track. Like, you know, if you have an idea that I often come to the track with some sort of spark idea. And for me, it's usually something I'm beatboxing or something I'm like humming or whistling. And I'll be like, awesome. Oh, that's a fun little melody. That's the way my brain works. There is a constant radio station in the back of my head of rhythms and melodies that just play. And it's like every once in a while, one of them catches me enough when I'm walking towards the dog. Like I'll be coming out of the shower with a beatbox idea. That I made a song last week like that. And that one I sent you on feedback, Evan, that was the wolf whistle, the whistle. I was like literally just whistling that, walking through my living room. And I'm like, I'm going to turn on the mic and lay this whistle down. And I don't know what's going to happen. But then to that, it's not that I had this whole song planned out of what it was going to be. I had one melody. It was like a 1-bar melody that I was like, and I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And I laid that down and then I like doubled it. And then I was like, what if I put a distorted layer on top of it? And oh, that's fun. And what if I do some oohs? Ooh, and I'm like, ooh, and what if I do some ahs? Ah, and I'm like, use that for a build-up. And then I was like, let me take the end of this build-up, run it across the track, and do a crazy mud pie on it and see what happens. Nice. And then I just kept the best chunks for the drop. And then I sent it to Evan 4 times. So like, what's working, what's not? He's like, this part's awesome. That part's meh. I think that part needs to be quieter and that part needs to be louder. And okay, cool. Draft 3, what's up? And then just keep back and forthing with a sensei at the dojo, or with you know a friend that knows what they're talking about, or even just a person who likes good music that you can send to. Like, do you hate this? Do you love any of it?
Yeah, I like that one because it's different. It obviously didn't come from a place of I want to make something that sounds like X. It's just like, let's throw some cool shit in there and see what happens. I have this spark of something catchy, and then let's see where it takes me. Yeah, that kind of like we touch on this semi-regularly on this podcast, but authenticity is so important. Regardless of execution, if you don't have an authentic idea, it's really hard to place your stamp on something. You know, even if you execute Skrillex Light really, really well, you're still Skrillex Light. You're not whoever you are, you know? And like that Wolf Whistle track is a perfect example of exactly something that I'm pretty sure only you could make.
Yeah, probably.
Send that shit over after.
I will do. I will do.
Yeah, you're gonna
creep into my DM.
You're gonna love it. Got this like super intentionally distorted intro to the breakdown that is just so choice.
Oh, I already know I love it just by the sounds of it. I think too, to touch up on that, like having a diverse way of coming up with ideas, and if you don't have an idea, having a diverse catalog of methods to come up with ideas, whether it's generating them chaotically like you guys talked about, or whether it's whistling it, or whether it's like I got FL Studio Mobile on my phone recently, and I got Spire after we talked, Luke, and I generated some ideas I never would have if I didn't specifically start a song recording into my phone. So, you know, as long as you don't think so much about what the idea sounds like right off the bat and you approach it from that drafting process, it doesn't matter. Just pick a series of motions to go through it, and it should yield some sort of results. We won't say good or bad, but that's regardless of the fact, you're still going to have something, and it is sort of a numbers game at the end of the day.
Yeah, one of my recipes for disaster and dissatisfaction with my music was fully developing how a song was supposed to sound before sitting down on my DAW. Like, I know exactly what the patch is going to be, and I know exactly how the drums are going to sound. And then I spend all my time either trying to find that sound in my library or trying to create that sound, none of which are efficient practices. But if you just go in with that spark mentality, like, oh, here's a rhythm, here's a melody, or even better, here's a track I want to break down in the arrangement exercise, and let's roll with it. Like, this is like, I'm going to make a song that's in this general vibe at this tempo with this groove, and then just run with it and put your own ideas on top of it, however they show up.
Yeah, you just touched on something super important, is that the amount of time you're going to waste to get something that's in your head into your computer, if you want it to sound the exact same, you're going to lose it. You're not, it's never going to be the exact same as it sounds in your head. So especially if you have like a melody or a chord progression or a rhythm, even if it's 3 elements, write all of them in the init saw patch first, and then come back and figure out how to get as close as you can, if you even want to at that point. But a lot of the time, the beauty, like we talked about, is that you will pull up one of the patches you made 2 weeks ago, like, oh, this might sound cool, and it ends up like amazing. Like the LFO retrigger isn't on, and the pattern that you play makes some sort of additional rhythm that you didn't expect, and you're like, oh shit, that's so fucking cool. If you spend all of your time, like you said, trying to force what you're making to sound like the spark that was in your head, then you're never going to get to a complete song, because you don't have all of the articulations of the complete song in your head. You have the genesis of the idea, and being okay with the fact that that genesis is not going to be the exact same as what you end up with is how you actually come up with good and interesting music.
Yeah, the music that you didn't expect to create and stuff. I think that's probably the answer to the question then, like get down your pattern / rhythm, then worry about your note selection, and then get your sound design, and then it kind of just all starts to gel.
Yeah,
totally.
So you talked about something. Sorry, Tess, you want to jump in with something before I switch the subject?
No, I was just gonna say, I always seen it like those free gliders that like jump off the mountain in those like suits or whatever.
Squirrel suits.
Yeah. If you don't have an idea of how you're gonna approach this, like, am I gonna go straight down and even out? Am I like where am I headed to? Like some sort of basic idea, you're probably gonna crash into a tree and really harm yourself, or let's just say end up with some results you're not happy with, versus building a good relationship and getting comfortable with just like starting the idea is like having that confidence to jump off and just see where it takes you, sort of thing.
Totally.
I like it. What's up, humans? It's Luke, your friendly neighborhood trap Jesus. Thank you so much for watching our videos. We appreciate you. Remember to like and subscribe to our channels. And if you have any questions or topics that we need to cover on the show, put them in the comments. Appreciate you. Peace, and peace among worlds.